Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March 2023 edition of the St. Lawrence County Chamber's Lunch and Learn webinar series. I am Laura Pearson, Workforce Development Coordinator for the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce and the Executive Director of the Ogdensburg Chamber. This monthly educational webinar series is made possible by the generous support of St. Lawrence University and Clarkson University, who are leadership circle supporters of the Chamber. I would also like to thank Ben Dixon, Executive Director for the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce, for his tech support and assistance during this webinar. Before I introduce today's presenters, I want to run through a few things with you. First, your mics have been muted and your webcams have been disabled. But if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat window and we will do our best to answer them. Please note that this session is being recorded for the purposes of broadcasting it on our webinar archive and YouTube channel, which is named the SLC Chamber NY. After the presentations are complete, we will stop the recording for any Q&A. We do keep the webinars to under an hour so you can get back to work. If you're interested in presenting or have a topic you would like to see presented, please contact us and let us know. Did your small business qualify for the PPP loans or COVID relief programs? You may also be eligible for Empire State Development's COVID-19 Capital Cost Tax Credit Program. Small businesses can receive a cash tax refund of up to $25,000 based on COVID-19 related expenses. In this webinar, our presenters will help you learn about the program and how to apply. I'm therefore pleased to introduce our first presenter, Alex Morrison, Program Manager of Forward. Alex Morrison is responsible for creating, developing, and implementing novel program administration processes for clients. He currently manages the program infrastructure for Empire State Development's COVID-19 Capital Cost Tax Credit Program and is a subject matter expert in the program. Prior to his role of Forward, Alexander spent his time in Washington State Legislature focused on novel research to identify programs to allocate hundreds of millions in the 2019 Biennium Capital Projects Fund for the state. Our second presenter is Tina Tran, Marketing Manager of Forward. Tina Tran supports marketing and outreach efforts, including strategy and content creation, such as press releases, email, social media, and more. Tina has extensive experience in communications and digital marketing for nonprofits and human services. Tina supports statewide marketing and outreach efforts for the COVID-19 Capital Cost Tax Credit Program. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
Hello, thank you for coming and attending. My name is Alexander Morrison, the program manager for this tax credit program for New York, and I will popcorn it over to Tina.
Thanks, Alex. As Laura mentioned, I'm Tina, Marketing Manager at Forward. Thank you so much to the St. Lawrence Chamber of Commerce for having us for today to share the Capital Cost Tax Credit Program with you all. I'm going to go ahead and screen share and begin our presentation. Here. Actually, Ben, can you give me screen share permissions?
Sure. Did that do it?
Let's try again. Yep, that worked. Thanks.
Great.
Okay, so this is our webinar for the New York Capital Costs Tax Credit Program. So this, as mentioned earlier, this program is administered by Empire State Development and powered by Forward. In this presentation, we will be going over the program details, the application process, and required documentation for the Capital Cost Tax Credit Program. We'll also hold some time at the end of the session for a Q&A and for you all to start this pre-screening process. So here's an overview of the program. The $250 million COVID-19 capital cost tax credit program provides financial assistance to New York State small businesses burdened with a range of operational costs stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic. Small businesses can receive a tax credit of 50% of qualifying expenses up to a maximum of $25,000 in tax credits based on qualifying expenses of $50,000. So who is eligible for this program? Eligible businesses must be in operation as of the date of the application, be incorporated in New York State or licensed or registered to do business in New York State, not owe past due federal, state, or local taxes, may not be more than 5% owned directly or indirectly by a publicly traded company, be open to and or service the public. So unfortunately, nonprofits are not eligible for this program. They must have less than 2.5 million in gross receipts, and they must have incurred at least $2,000 of qualifying expenses between January 1st, 2021 and December 31st, 2022, operate a business with 100 or less employees, and be in substantial compliance and attest to being in substantial compliance with applicable federal, state, and local laws, regulations, codes, and requirements. And what is a qualifying expense? So these are just a few of the qualifying expense categories, such as supplies to disinfect and or protect against COVID-19 transmission, restocking of perishable goods to replace those lost during the COVID-19 pandemic, hand sanitizer stations, certain point of sale payment equipment to allow for contactless payment. So for example, if you started, using an online website, or if you started using, Square and that type of technology, building construction and retrofits to accommodate social distancing, and installation of air purifying equipment. At the end of this webinar, we'll also share a link to the ESD website for this program, and you can see a full list of qualifying expense categories there. So how does the tax credit work? So as we mentioned earlier, businesses can receive a tax credit of 50% of qualifying expenses up to a maximum of $25,000 in tax credits based on qualifying expenses of $50,000. So for example, if you incurred $10,000 in COVID-related expenses, so you spent $10,000 on, air purifiers, hand sanitizer, Clorox wipes, and so on, you're eligible for $5,000 in tax credits. The maximum refundable tax credit in this program is $1,000, meaning that your business needs to incur at least $2,000 in COVID-related expenses to qualify. And also, I also really want to stress that this is a refundable tax credit. So that means that if you apply to this program and you are awarded a tax credit certificate and you report the certificate to your 2023 taxes, so that's your taxes next year, and after that tax credit is applied to any taxes owed, if you received that $5,000 tax credit and you owe $2,000 in taxes, you will get a check in the mail for $3,000. So there is an opportunity to get cash from this program. And now on to the application process. So the first part of the application process is to complete the pre-screening tool, which we will share a link with you at the end of this presentation. This pre-screening tool is a quick form. It only takes maybe like 5 or 10 minutes to complete, and it checks if your business is eligible for the program. If you are eligible, you will then receive an email with a link to apply to the program on Forward. You'll be prompted to create a Forward account and begin the application process. Complete your application in Forward by filling all required profile details and upload all required documents. You can save your progress and log in at any time to update your application. You may submit your application once it's complete, and if your application is missing any information or required documentation, Forward specialists will reach out to you via email, phone, or text to discuss your application. Once your application is fully complete and reviewed by Forward, you will receive a notification via email about whether your application was approved or denied. If your application was approved, you'll receive a tax certificate via email, and you'll just make sure to include the certificate in your 2023 tax reporting. So let's talk more about documentation. So after you're approved through the pre-screening tool and you have access to your application in Forward, you'll be required to provide documentation to ensure that your business is eligible and prove the COVID related expenses that you incurred. You'll upload this documentation to the Forward portal, and support specialists are available to help you with this process. So the first piece of documentation that you need to provide is evidence of gross receipts at 2.5 million or less. So depending on the type of business you operate, you'll need to provide one of the forms listed on this slide. So for partnerships, you'll want to include an IRS Form 1065 and a Schedule K1. For sole props, you'll want to include an IRS Form 1040 Schedule C. And for corporations, include an IRS Form 1120 or 1120S. You'll also need to provide evidence of employment through an NYS 45 form. If you're an individual or sole prop or a single member LLC, meaning that you don't have any employees, you don't have to submit this form. Yeah. You'll also need to provide a schedule of ownership detailing the names, social security number, or federal employer identification number, and percentage ownership for all owners of the business. The application also requires evidence of business location and current operation. You can demonstrate this by providing two of the documents listed on this slide. So for example, you can provide a current lease, utility bill, current business bank statement, current business mortgage statement, a business credit card statement, professional insurance bill, payment processing statement, or an NYS ST809 or ST100 sales tax collection documentation. And finally, you will need to provide proof of expenses, which may include an original invoice, legible photocopy, or some combination of documentation that identifies the qualified expense as paid by the applicant. So examples of proof of expenses are on this slide. So for example, canceled checks or other documents reflecting proof of payment, cash register, tape receipts, account statements, credit card receipts and statements, and so on. However, though, your proof of expense should identify the payee, the amount paid, proof of payment, the date incurred, and include a description of the item purchased or service received that shows the amount was for a qualified expense. So we recommend providing receipts or invoices as they usually contain all of the required information. Proof of expenses will be required for every expense item over $1,000, and a random sample of items less than $1,000 will be selected for review. You can get started today by applying to the pre-screening tool. You can feel free to scan the QR code on this slide with your phone, or we'll also, let me see if I can also drop the link to the pre-screening in the chat as well. And now we can open this up for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can like raise your hand and we will answer your questions.
Tina, I have a couple questions right off the bat. One, what is the allowable time frame for when those eligible expenses were incurred? In other words, over what start and end date is allowable for the expenses that qualify?
Yeah, really good question. So these are expenses or costs incurred from January 1st of 2021 all the way till December 31st of 2022. And so those are the main functions in which costs and expenses have to be incurred by. There is one stipulation, which I'll kind of just briefly go over. Because this program is kind of going over until this following year. Let's say you started a project in 2022. Let's say it was a construction project and you had invoices that continued until March 31st of 2023. Those invoices would be allowable because you started that expense back in 2022. So those would be kind of stipulations in which we would allow for an extension. But just as far as to button it up, at large, the majority of costs and expenses have to be from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. That will be a majority of stuff that we approve. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Another question. What is the deadline for getting in your pre-screening application?
So currently right now, it is March 31st of 2023.
So coming right up.
Yes, please fill out the pre-screening as soon as possible. And it's a very easy pre-screening. It, can take, I think I filled out one for someone in under 3 minutes, right? So it could be pretty quick. And that just gets you in the door. So, but that's the biggest step forward for this. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Another question. You mentioned that there is technical assistance for filling out the documentation and so forth. How does one go about accessing that assistance?
Yes, there's go ahead, Tina. No, Tina, you're the best person for this.
Yeah, so we do offer technical assistance through a partnership with the Business Outreach Center or the Bach Network. So we will provide a link at the end of this webinar for anyone who is interested in technical assistance. You can sign up for a quick one-on-one 30-minute appointment with a business counselor to get help with the pre-screening tool, and also if you need other general business assistance, that's also available as well.
Great. We do have a question in the chat. Are landlords eligible?
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna type into that, but yes, landlords are eligible. There's no stipulation for a certain type of business, industry that's not allowable. I think this is probably bleed over from there was a COVID grant for New York State in which small businesses could apply, but landlords were exempt from that program. This does not apply to that program.
Tina, you just mentioned you have another link relative to those assistance entities. If you would be willing to drop that in the chat, that would be wonderful.
Sure thing. Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up.
Great. Are there any other questions out there?
I have a question. If people on this call do the pre-screening tool, but they do it on March 31st, they would still be eligible to continue applying, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So
pre-screening, okay.
The pre-screening is just, yeah, the pre-screening gets your foot in the door, right, for the application, right? And so, yeah, we will continue processing that. So that's the aspect, like get the pre-screening done. And then as soon as they have you in the system, like you're in there, right? And so then you'll have time to do it after the fact. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Then we might want to send an e-blast out to all of our members with this link just to cover everybody.
Yep, good idea.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And then, yeah, it's a very easy pre-screening, right? And then it's going to ask you questions. You don't have to be super precise about what your expenses are at that time. It's just, they're just trying to get a gauge for kind of where you're at. But like the application that we actually give you through Ford, that's the one in which we'll be asking for receipts, and expenses, and you have to be a little more detail oriented. But for the pre-screening, you can be a little bit more general and quickly kind of go through it. Just the most precise thing you have to do is make sure you're using the EIN associated with your business. So if you have a business EIN, use that. Do not use your social security number if your business is associated with a certain EIN. So that will be the case for certain Schedule C or sole props, right? So they might actually have an EIN dedicated to the business. So just a FYI for that one as well.
Mina, can you
And I just
Tina,
dropped
can-
in the link. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Great.
Can you send us the slides right after this so we can send those on to the people who are on this call right now so they can use the
Yeah.
link that's on there? Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
On that thought, I'll note that we will be following up to this webinar with information, including any supplementary materials provided by Forward and the slides so that you can use that. And also that's if you happen to be viewing this recording on the YouTube after the webinar has happened, please don't hesitate to contact the Chamber for assistance. And Tina and Alex, is there any kind of if people have questions or anything what's about this program, is there a direct contact that they should reach out to?
Yeah, we can provide an email address for you,
Wonderful.
Ben and Laura, and and you can feel free to share that with everyone after this webinar presentation.
Excellent. Any other questions out there? Please feel free to throw them in the chat or speak up.
There is a question from Ellen in the chat. Is there anything else available to landlords? I face huge devastation from tenants that I can't overcome and have been unable to find any help. I don't know if they'll have information for you today.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not aware of any support for landlords. But you may want to reach out to that technical assistance link that I put in the chat for the Bach network. They may be able to direct you to other programs or resources for landlords.
Wonderful. Well, we will move now to the closing remarks for our webinar. However, do feel free if another question comes up to throw that in the chat. We'll give you another chance.
All right. Thank you, Alex and Tina, for your time and sharing your expertise with us today. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope this hour was valuable to you and provided useful information on how you can apply for the COVID-19 tax credits you may be eligible to receive. I would also like to thank Clarkson University and St. Lawrence University for their support in sponsoring this webinar series. Follow and like our Facebook page and stay up to date with what's happening at the Chamber and to register for our next webinar. The next Lunch and Learn webinar series will be presented on Wednesday, April 12th by Pam Lewis, Executive Director for the St. Lawrence Workforce Development Board and the One Stop Career Center. She will discuss programs and services available to you or your employees through the WEO program and the center. We encourage you to view our other webinars in the Lunch and Learn series by going to slcchamber.org and clicking the archived webinars on the right-hand menu, or go to our YouTube channel, search for SLC Chamber NY. Also, if you know of any businesses that would benefit from membership in the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce, please do refer them to us. We can be reached at 315-386-4000 and at info@slcchamber.org. Interested businesses can also learn about our benefits and apply for membership at www.slcchamber.org. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great afternoon, and we're going to stop the recording so we can do a live question and answer for people who don't like to be on the recording. And please remember, if you have a topic that you would like to present or a topic that you would like us to get information on to present, please let us know. You can reach me at 315-393-3620. I almost forgot my phone number. Or you can reach me at laura@slcchamber.org. Okay, Ben, you want to stop the recording?
Yes, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Tina and Alex. There you go.
Great.